It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
That's right, folks. You know what that sound means. Welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Secular Rarity, and I'm just going to be real with you. The topics today are freaking tough. And a lot of times we like to have fun and we like to joke and be really playful. And these topics are dense and they're important. So we're glad that you guys are here to be with us, and we're going to try and inject as much levity and fun as we always do. But definitely make sure you guys stick around for the whole episode because there's a lot of good stuff here. And to help me walk that very, very fine line, I am so thrilled to have three amazing skeptical humanist perspectives here with me. Starting all the way on the far end, I've been told he lives across a very large pond. It's Richard Gilliver. How are you, man?
I've tried scaling that pond on the lily pads and it never seems to work.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I'm looking forward to this. It's a long, dark couple of topics, and it's going to be interesting to kind of try and unravel them a little bit. So I'm looking forward to it.
For sure. Next, somebody that's a little bit closer to home, but not as close as I would want. Cynthia McDonald, how are you?
Hey, Sec, how you doing?
Good. I'm excited.
I was just going to tell Richard the only reason why you can't scale that large pond is because you don't have enough faith. If you had the faith of the size of a mustard seed, then you can walk on the. You could even tell the mountains in the area that you are to cast themselves into that pond, and you can walk upon them. But obviously your faith is not large enough. So get on that, Richard. Is basically what I'm saying to you. And
by the end of this, Richard will have more faith, don't you think? I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I think so too. We'll be praying, giving our thoughts and prayers as we go through this episode.
Well, the good news is our last but definitely not least co-host today has more faith than a mustard seed. That's Scott Dickie. How are you, man?
I think I forgot my faith. I didn't realize I was supposed to bring it with me.
Oh, gosh.
Damn.
I'll see what I can come up with. I'll see what I can come up with here on the spot. I'm good on my toes. Okay. But thank you for having me here. This is a fun show to do. This is my third visit here. So big news here.
Heck yeah. We absolutely are always glad to have you and as many wonderful people as we do have. By the way, this show, The Nonprofits, is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. So with that in mind, today we're going to talk about a couple of different things. Like I said, these are a little bit heavy, but we are going to do our best to have fun. Also, I know these three people well enough that they are not going to shy away from calling out the garbage we're about to see. But one thing we'll be talking about is an abortion ban recently pushed through in Oklahoma and a 10-year study on folks who have been denied abortions and folks who have gotten abortions and kind of where all that shakes out. Following that, we're going to talk about a pretty disgusting conspiracy theory called the Great Replacement. It's not very great in my eyes, but that as well as, unfortunately, another mass shooting in the United States. So definitely please stick around. And if you'd like, just take a moment, pause the show real quick, because as is the case with all of our shows, the links to today's topics and the news that we discuss are available in the description just below our beautiful faces. And also, I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to let you in on a secret. You can come prepared because you can go to the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of those articles ahead of time. I really do suggest checking some of these out. There's some really good stuff. So with all of that, Richard, I think you're starting us off. What the heck is going on in my country? What is happening in Oklahoma?
This article is from AP News on the 20th of May 2022 by Sean Murphy. I've got to mute myself. Johnny Angel's not here to do it. It tells us that Oklahoma lawmakers on Thursday approved a bill prohibiting all abortions with few exceptions, and providers said they would stop performing the procedure as soon as the governor signs it in the latest example of the GOP's national push to restrict access to what has been a constitutional right for nearly half a century. People are going to have sex, and some of those people are going to get pregnant, and some of those people are going to want or need abortions. So I'm going to open this up with a question. This bill is about banning all abortions with few exceptions. And our article points out that there may be difficulty in accessing doctors for these exceptions. We'll call these the need abortion people. And this is pretty straightforward. If you ban abortions, where are the abortionists going to work? And I'm going to throw that question to our very own discount Frodo Baggins secular Rarity.
Yeah. I when I saw this is so reminiscent of what's happened in my state in Tennessee. We're very much, politically speaking, this state is very much in line with exactly the way that the Oklahoma politicians, feel about I don't want to be too crass, but just about women and non-white guys. And they don't have very high opinions, I'll be honest. While there are some exceptions, and you mentioned this, Richard, there are some for, the most critical of spaces, and that is good, and I value that, but I just think it's a ploy. And the reason that I think it's a ploy is because they are still so heavily criminalizing every other aspect of it that the abortion clinics are going to shut down. They're just going to leave, and you're not going to be able to receive any of these services in these life-threatening situations. Now I don't have any medical training, which is good that there is one of the wonderful people here, Miss McDonald. You know a little bit about medicine. Why is it so important to have access to these things outside of these emergency, moments where the life of the mother is at risk?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that what a lot of these these abortion bans do not keep in mind is not only the physical endangerment that potential mothers or people with uteruses will have if abortion is banned, but they also don't really keep in mind the emotional and mental issues that could transpire if this particular ban goes into effect, which more than likely it is. We talked about in previous shows that abortion banning is part of the whole Operation Blitz that, Christian nationalist, GOP, right-wing conservatism, elected officials and the people who support them are, pushing in the lower state areas and municipalities where it's a little bit easier for them to control the whole narrative when it comes to laws. Now, with that being said, and also knowing that earlier this year we've heard about the leaked decision from the SCOTUS concerning the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it kind of just is taking this whole ban and just putting it on roller skates. And I don't necessarily think that I know that legislators are not looking at anything scientific when it comes to doing these uh, legislative bills. They're not. This is completely things that they're arbitrarily coming up with in order for them to actually push their narrative. And what's even scarier is that you have other people on board with this who think that, oh, abortion is evil, it's wrong, it's against God, etc., etc. Therefore, it should be something that's banned, or you're getting rid of babies. But I like the way that Dr. Abby Hafer put it when we did the whole show about Roe v. Wade some time ago, when she said that when you are conceiving at what this, because this particular ban says that conception happens, they consider life at conception, not at birth, right? So at conception, you don't have life, you have a brand new piece of DNA. Okay. And with that, as time goes on, you're going to get additional molecules that happen to transpire, and then you're going to get a multicellular molecule, like when we're at the embryo stage until we get to the fetal stage. You can't murder a molecule. I like to say that again for the people in the back so they can hear me. You cannot murder a molecule. And this is exactly what this particular ban is saying that, we're trying to prevent. But, like you have to also think about not just like, the mother's life is in danger because of ectopic pregnancies. That's when, like, the pregnancy is happening outside of the uterus, is going into the fallopian tube. Or if you're thinking about, like, something is going on specifically with the fetus in the womb, in order for them to not develop correctly, and then sometimes, and the mother's life could also be in danger in order so that you will have to cease from it happening. But with this ban, you're going to have less people being able to do the abortions. So more people will die because the people who are able to do abortions are not available. Even according to the AP article, 2 of Oklahoma's 4 abortion clinics stopped providing abortions after the governor signed the 6-week ban earlier. And an attorney from the other 2 other independent clinics said that they will no longer offer services once this bill is signed. So you have the specialists already in these particular clinics that maybe other doctors will be able to glean from, but they're not even going to be there. So I don't understand where Oklahoma is, like, getting their particular ideas from, as far as like, oh, we'll keep an exception for mothers' lives or people with uteruses' lives, but they're not. Because, like, with this ban, the people who are going to be able to perform life-saving surgeries are not going to be there. So essentially, when you're banning the abortion, you're banning the potential mother's life from continuing to go forward. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think this is a win, not if situation. This is a win the first person dies due to unsafe abortions and these other terrible complications that can happen. And shame on all the politicians in every state that has sentenced, half of our population to that, basically. Scott, what do you think? Are we seeing this wrong? Is there an angle we're missing on this?
Well, I mean, to me, it seems really clear what's really happening. I mean, even if you just limit what we're looking at to Oklahoma, they've had multiple laws go into effect and on the table recently. In April, they had the governor signed a bill that makes it a felony to perform an abortion. But that one has a technicality. It doesn't take effect until August 2022. And that one targets the abortion providers, which we've seen are already kind of vacating Oklahoma. And so, so that would give them incentive to shut down operations. And I don't know, it seems like the delay, they said it wasn't going to take effect until August. I think they're kind of dragging their feet on that one, knowing that it would probably face some kind of challenge at federal court. But if they can wait until SCOTUS has an opportunity to make some kind of ruling on Roe v. Wade, then that's a different scenario. And so it seems to me that they got their bullet in the chamber and they're just waiting, waiting to pull the trigger on that one. That was in April. Then in early May, the governor signed a bill that we mentioned it already, the 6-week ban, right? So anything beyond 6 weeks, which, if we're being realistic, is almost all pregnancies. It's you almost never would find out before the 6-week time if you were pregnant, and by then it's too late.
Right.
And so that one took effect immediately on signing. The only exception on that one, there was no exception for rape and incest on that 6-week ban. That was only in the case to save the mother.
Right.
But that one allowed citizens to sue the doctor or the clinic or even other people that helped to facilitate those. So it's like they're coming at it from all angles. And of course, we have the one that the one that they just that was just approved by the legislation, right? That's the new one that'll just ban all even before the 6-week cutoff. Yeah. And they did mention exceptions in the case of rape or incest, but only if it's reported to the police. And that, that I don't know. It's just, talk about kicking somebody when they're vulnerable, right? That is just totally unacceptable. And it's all, so they're throwing all of these bills out. They're throwing, as many laws as you can. And the governor, he actually tweeted, "I want Oklahoma to be the most pro-life state in this country." And
but it's not pro-life.
Yeah, it's like a big virtue signaling, and it's like I can picture them sitting around a table with all the other governors, and they just whip it out and flop it on the table and say, "There's my pro-life cred right there." Right. And I would like to point out that I think a phallic analogy is very appropriate here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So it's like a contest, Oklahoma, we're ahead of Texas, and Texas is like, no, nobody beats Texas. And so it's frustrating in the the focus that they have on that one goal, but it's like they're kind of cavalier about the fact that they're doing it. And it, I don't know, as a father and a husband and a brother and a son, and it just infuriates me. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I have to agree with so much of that. It's so, one of the most upsetting parts, I think, is the fact that they are willing to exactly what you said, be so cavalier with it and be so blatant about not caring about the ramifications of what they're asking for and pushing for, and maybe violating civil norms and law procedures and gerrymandering. It could be lots of things that they're doing. Richard, as somebody who allegedly is a British citizen, so you are not subject to these laws. Again, alleged. We don't know for sure. Is there a push to control the bodies of people with uteruses in your country by a hardcore right-wing Christian nationalism movement? That might be a leading question, but
in Northern Ireland, I think it's kind of an issue. In the rest of the UK, I think it's funny because actually yesterday I heard something on the radio, and I was only listening in passing, as it was on at work, so I wasn't. It just caught my attention. There are some, I don't remember the percentage, but almost like a large percentage of abortion clinics in the UK are targeted. People with uteruses who are going there to get abortions are targeted. And so it does occur here, but I don't think it's anywhere near anywhere near it as what it is in the US. And something Cynthia said like really struck me. And it was something I wanted to talk about anyway, when she said that these are laws made on emotion. They're not made on science. And, you know, those emotions are usually based on religious ideals. Mm-hmm. The interpretation of old dusty books, usually mistranslated, and usually in the US, the Bible. And I'd like to point out to those, especially who are Christian, who are watching, what the Bible actually says on abortion. Because if you do an internet search on what the Bible says on abortion, you'll usually get loads and loads, hundreds of pro-Christian pages telling you that God loves all life and other vague nonsense. It doesn't actually touch on what the Bible specifically says. So if you have a look at Numbers 5:11 to 31, it explicitly tells us, actually, God specifically tells us that if a man suspects his wife might be pregnant from another man, he can take her to the priest who will administer, and this is a quote, the bitter water that brings a curse, which makes her womb miscarry. So the very God that the US lawmakers are quoting or think is pro-life is explicitly instructs abortion. Explicitly. Learn your fucking Bible.
Cheers to that.
I've been trying to tell people that Richard Gilliver has been telling Christians to learn their fucking Bible since we've been doing things about the fucking Bible, but no one reads the fucking Bible when it's time to actually have these conversations, even though they said this is based on biblical principle, but obviously it's not, because when you read the fucking Bible doesn't tell you that shit. Fuck. Just saying.
It's almost like they latched on to an idea, and not everybody, but it seems like there was just an idea that was floated by somebody standing in some shiny shoes on a stage, and then just God behind it. That was how they finished the whole thing. And then they were just like, yeah, whatever that was. What was being said? I don't know, but I'm with him. Which, okay, I guess that's one way to spend a Sunday, or 10 years actively pushing a project to, again, maybe, kind of flout some of the laws that we have. Scott, what is this study? Because I think this might help, shed a little bit more light on how blatantly incorrect the people that are pushing for these types of bans are going for. Again, maybe a slightly leading of an intro, but what you got?
Well, no, that's you led right into it here. So we read it was an article. Actually, it was an article about an NPR interview that took place just a couple of weeks ago. It was on a landmark study, tracks the lasting effect of having an abortion or being denied one. That was the title. And it was Megan Burbank and Emily Kwong at NPR that conducted that. And so the interview was with this scientist, this reproductive expert, Dr. Deanna Green Foster. She's the director of research at Answer. I thought it was an interesting name there. Answer, Advancing New Standards in Reproductive Health. I just thought that was a very nice acronym. Answer sponsored a multi-year longitudinal study, meaning that they followed their subjects along, the course over several years. So what we're looking at is data as it changes over time. And they followed hundreds of women to track the effects of either being denied an abortion or if they were allowed to have an abortion. And the study was called the Turnaway Study, referring to the women that were turned away from their, from their desired outcome. So the study was born, and I thought this was really cool, in response to something that U.S. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy said. And he said this in a written opinion on an abortion-related case from 2007, he said, quote, "While we find no reliable data to measure the phenomenon, it seems unexceptional to conclude some women come to regret their choice to abort the infant life they once created and sustained. Severe depression and loss of esteem can follow. So he starts out saying, I'm just pulling this out of my ass. And then he proceeds to pull it out of his ass. Okay. So he's saying, well, it's, we were talking about before about how it's an emotional response and it's not based on science. And here, Justice Kennedy is literally saying exactly that. This is not based on science. This is just something that I think. And so what Dr. Foster's team did is they recruited just under 1,000 women from 30 different abortion facilities across the country. The article, the website about the Turnaway study did refer to women's. I don't know if they had any non-women people that can become pregnant in their study. So I believe that was their characterization there. But anyway, so they collected up these subjects from 30 different abortion facilities across the nation, and then they followed them and interviewed them periodically over 5 and even more years. They were asked questions related to their physical health, their employment, their educational achievement, et cetera, et cetera. And the result was they didn't end up with a paper. They ended up with a mass of data that was used to provide data for what turned out to be dozens and dozens of academic papers, most of which were published in peer-reviewed journals. And then they also had a book called the Turnaway Study as well. And before we actually talk about what they found in the study, I just want to encourage readers to look into the published papers that were behind the study. If you just look up Turnaway Study, they have the Answer organization has a big portion of their website dedicated to that, and they have lots of links. And I love it when I see somebody talking about their research and they include tons and tons of links. That means you can do a little snooping on your own. You can do a little deep diving on your own. You can, nuzzle out those truffles of information. And that's what I like to do. So don't just rely on the headlines and the press releases, which can be misleading sometimes, and also maybe not even written by the researchers. So each of these analyses, they had their own limitations and caveats, which were discussed in each of the published papers. And so I like seeing that. It shows an honesty in the investigation, and it shows a willingness to follow the evidence where it leads. And it's not necessarily, sometimes you'll see people say, well, we did a study and this is what we found out, and they don't really give you any of the data. And so, the little skeptic sense in the back of your mind ticks off a little bit, and, you wonder what's going on there. But they fully documented everything, and it's there for anybody who wants to investigate. Here's a couple of the results that they found. And the first one was specifically addressing Justice Kennedy's claim. Remember, he said that, let me go back to the quote here. He said that severe depression and loss of esteem can follow. And that turned out to, surprise, surprise, not be the case. This is a quote from the paper published in the Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry. It says, our study demonstrates that during a 5-year period, women receiving wanted abortions had similar or better mental health outcomes than those who were denied a wanted abortion. So they're comparing subjects who wanted an abortion who got one to the subjects who wanted an abortion and didn't get one. The convergence of most outcomes between the groups by 6 months to 1 year suggests that future divergence is unlikely. So at the beginning, in the first few months, the subjects who were allowed to get an abortion had better results, better mental health results than those who were refused to get. So that's the exact opposite of what Justice Kennedy was talking about. And then they also found that over time, the results converged. And so, the effects of the so-called big negative effects, any differences just wore off over time. This study also discusses a limitation they experienced of the subject attrition over the 5-year span. And talking about abortion, dealing with, I mean, I can only imagine, obviously, this is not something that I will ever personally face. But I can imagine that having to having to deal with something like that can be very traumatic, can be very troubling, not necessarily having the abortion, but having to make decisions, having to go through the process, maybe even having to fight the legal system, having to deal with friends and family members and politicians that want to tell you what to do. I mean, it can shake you up. And so, when you're dealing with a subject like that, it can be difficult to continue to stay with it. And so they did have some attrition over time, and they were able to compensate that by using some statistical techniques where they compare like the variance between subjects and amongst the different subjects. What else? They ask that the readers take the limitations into consideration. And again, that's really that's a positive sign of a good, solid research.
Yeah, let's hop over and no, you're great, man. That was absolutely wonderful. There was a lot, and this is why I focus so heavily on this to everybody out there watching it when it's premiering or on the replay. Please go look through these articles. Go look through these links. They're very easy to find. They're everywhere, y'all. They're in the description below. Facebook fan run page, nonprofits. It's very easy. This is some really good data. Richard, was there any point, was there any specific, piece of information in this whole study that you jumped out at?
You know what? This whole study, I think, is brilliant. I think the fact that somebody's taken it upon themselves to do it, made it so open. Anybody who's used to reading papers like this will know that, citing your sources and getting this thing open and peer reviewed and all that is very, very important in doing any kind of study. And this one is so open about it, and it seems to be overwhelmingly showing us one thing in particular, and that is that women and pregnant people they're just massively ignored by the people making these laws. And if you consider what these laws are entailing, that is absolutely bizarre. They just seem to be completely ignoring people who are pregnant, who can get pregnant. And, it's Scott mentioned it earlier. It's a big dick slapping contest. It's lots of men sat around a table fucking seeing how big the penises are. And, that's not the people who are affected by these laws. They shouldn't have the fucking right to make these decisions on other people's behalves. At least without expert and professional input into it. And that's not what we're seeing when these laws are made. We're seeing lots of people, as we mentioned before, who are emotionally invested in old dusty books. And that's not a basis for lawmaking, people. Come on, get your act together. Involve the people. Look at studies like this one. Dr. Foster, and I think she worked alongside social psychologist Antonia Biggs. And, other medical professionals and health experts, they're the ones who know what they're talking about. They're the ones who've invested the time, the study, all the effort into actually getting, wait for it, because this is very important, facts. And I know that's a dirty word to some people.
I don't think you can say that on YouTube. I don't think that's okay. We'll have somebody bleep it. We'll have somebody bleep it. Don't worry.
We can pretend he said FAX. FAX.
Four-letter word.
Before we go over to Cynthia and get your thoughts on it, I thought one of the things that was really wonderful was how this study seemingly hits at a lot of the big major talking points from people that are trying to ban abortions. And it kind of does it as again, like Scott said, she just heard Anthony Kennedy make this absurdly stupid argument on a Supreme Court case. Just, it kind of feels right in my tummy, so I'm pretty sure that's how we should pass the law. And she goes out there and does this phenomenal study. And, one of the things that she ends up finding is, and her whole team of researchers, 90 fucking 5%. 95% of the individuals followed who got an abortion when they wanted one said it was the right decision. That argument that argument of, well, 10 years down the road, you might be, oh, your soul's going to be empty. It's fucking dead. It is done. That is over. 95% of the people who received abortions when they wanted one, unequivocally, that was the right thing for me at that time. What about you, Cynthia? What jumped out at you?
A lot. And so I just
please don't say a white man's penis.
Oh my gosh.
No, if I see one, I'll run away, to be honest with you.
There's a lot getting bleeped.
Well, sorry, that's the next segment. That's the next segment. But no, I kind of wanted to go back to this whole Justice Kennedy, Anthony Kennedy's when he wrote his opinion concerning the abortion case from, I believe it was Gonzalez versus Carhart, that actually upheld the ban on a specific procedure using that's used rarely in later abortions. Matter of fact, I want to, because like some people would point out the whole concern even about like late term abortions, and how that could be just as prevalent if we continue to allow abortion to happen. And to be honest with you, like 9 times out of 10 abortions are not late term abortions. They are normally done when the fetus is actually in the embryo stage, so which is not a life. It is a multicellular organism. It's actually compared more to a parasite than it would be an actual human being. And if we go back to Richard's whole eloquent saying about read your fucking Bibles, we would also know that the Bible defines life after it leaves the womb. After the baby leaves the womb and is fully formed and able to breathe on its own,
and takes a breath,
it takes a breath, yes. And we get this example right from Genesis to the first chapter, and I'm sorry, to Genesis the second chapter. We get that example right when Adam is conceives basically Eve through God. So God fucked Adam and then made Eve. Take that.
Think about that for a second there.
Yeah. And especially since a lot of you all have an issue when wanting to call God he. Just saying. LGBT
sounds like a good video to me.
It is what it is.
Yeah, we want to talk
Scott,
about that.
What?
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, but I kind of wanted to go back to, I know I got off on a tangent. That's kind of what I do. But one of the things that I really wanted to put an emphasis on what he said is speculate. He speculated that women or people with uteruses who actually have abortions would have a higher rate of depression, a higher rate of anxiety, a higher rate of loss of self-esteem. And then, as you all eloquently put out, this Turnaway study shows that is not the case. I want to highlight specifically that during the survey that they did when they were actually asking questions, and for what I understood of this particular study, it did not identify anybody who was considered trans or non-binary. This is mostly people who were I would assume because it didn't say anything else, that these are basically cisgender women that they were actually interviewing, talking through, doing the study upon. And in the article itself, it talks about how they asked people about 6 emotions: happiness, sadness, regret, relief, anger, and guilt. And what they learn is that the positive emotions outweigh the negative emotions. And I would, and going back to Justice Anthony Kennedy, I would conjecture that his whole opinion concerning his speculation about loss of self-esteem and also this whole thing about severe depression was more about the guilt factor and the huge stigma that is placed upon people with uteruses if they even consider abortion. Just think about, like, if you are a person who gets pregnant and you are now faced with a decision of whether you're going to allow your pregnancy to go to term or whether if you're going to terminate it. for various reasons sometimes. And we also even seen in previous studies, the Guttmacher Institute has a lot of them, that the majority of people who decide to get abortions are for economic reasons. They just can't afford another kid, which is real as fuck. Okay, children cost money. I don't know if you all knew that.
Yeah.
They cost money.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I spent almost $200 today on one baby. Just today, one child. Okay, the child needed diapers. The child needed the child needed a lot of shit. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to buy the shit that the child needs.
Because they don't have jobs. They don't have jobs, right? Like,
yeah, and I do.
Slackers.
I know. I'm trying to tell the kid, get a damn job, but
no accountability. No accountability
whatsoever.
Bring back child labor.
There we go.
That's what fixes the whole problem.
Right. Here's the thing, like, because if you want to do all these damn bannings on abortions and shit, you might as well bring back child labor laws so they can earn their goddamn keep. But as I was saying, so stigma. Let's talk about stigma. So, this whole thing about when you are considering having an abortion, and if you decide to have one, a main reason, let's say for economic reasons, because children cost money. And then you have people on the other side telling you that you are a murderer, you are an dishonest person, you're going to hell, you're going against God's will, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you are constantly hearing that particular rhetoric thrown at you over and over again, that's where the loss of self-esteem and the depression and anxiety comes along, is because you're more concerned about how you're going to be looked at based on the decision that you make, which more than likely is going to be the proper decision for you, because it's very interesting for people who can whip their shit out on the table and measure it with a stick, tell you who does not do that, whether you should actually carry your pregnancy to term or not. That baffles the fuck out of me. Yeah. Even when I'm having these particular debates, right, Richard, thank you. I'm having these back and forths with people who are mostly telling me, as a person that has a uterus, that I don't have the right over my body to decide, or even have the mind, the gray matter, in order for me to make a proper decision if I'm able to carry a pregnancy to term or not. This is my face. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3.
and
use that
Cynthia,
as an emotion, as one of the reaction pieces in the thumbnail, if you want to say so. Go ahead, Zach.
Do you think for those out there that are very much fond of that whole, say, whipping it out on the table in front of each other to measure, do you think in your opinion they would be as willing to allow those in the world that cannot whip and measure to tell them when they can do that action? Do you think those people would be as comfortable with others making decisions about their body parts and so forth?
I'm going to give you the most intelligent, professional statement right now. I hope you guys are ready.
We're ready.
Hell motherfucking no. Hell motherfucking no. Hell, because the same people I would ask, let me ask you something. Let's just say that let's just take the United States, because most of us are here. Sorry, Richard. Not sorry. I know Richard's like, I'm so not sorry. I'm so not sorry that I'm not in the United States. But anyway, let's just say the United States decides that, along with the abortion ban, people with penises and testicles are forced to get vasectomies at a certain age. Let's put it that way.
Wonder how quick we'd be protesting.
Yeah. How you gonna tell me what to do with my body? My body, my choice, motherfucker. Looking ass.
Yeah, I mean, there's another example of that as well, If you know, these lawmakers, I wonder if somebody needed a kidney transplant, if they were taken away and said, right, you have to give your kidney.
Yeah.
You've got no choice in the matter. You
Yeah.
have to give your kidney.
Right.
I bet they'd be changing their fucking minds faster. You know,
Man,
they're not going to go for that.
Just think about it, like
it just seems to be.
Well, just to think about it, like, you know, there's a selective service enrollment that every, I guess, like male child in the United States have to sign up for. You know, so like if for example, if the United States goes on another war, which is likely, then they can go ahead and select every male person from 18 years and above in order for them to be in selective service and serve their country in some particular capacity. This happened during the Vietnam War. This happened during World War II, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, but like that is not really, selective service is not something that is aptly enforced right now, especially since you have more and more people who are willing to go to armed forces because of benefits that they will receive. Matter of fact, I just found out that the armed forces in the United States alone are overly represented by African Americans. I did not know that, over 28%. And the reason being is because if they want to continue education, or get other particular, or, you know, get benefits or businesses for capital or things of that nature, they can use their GI Bill to do it, especially if they're not adjacent to wealth, which even goes back to this ban. Remember, I just said that majority of people who actually choose abortions are done for economic reasons. They cannot afford. And another thing about it is, you even look at a lot of these particular states. I know it's kind of, we're going back to segment one, but it ties in all together. A lot of these states that have these overarching bans don't have expanded Medicaid. They have very weak social service resources. And they still have a very huge gap of groups that when it comes to who has wealth and who doesn't. And there is no type of conversation around, okay, we're banning abortion, so what can we do to help people economically, socially, and things of that nature in order for them to be able to carry a baby to term and afford it. Matter of fact, we still have an issue with healthcare in this particular country today when it comes to infant mortality rates and maternal mortality rates. We are at the bottom of the world, even though that we are a developed country.
Yeah. And
well, that would involve consistency, right? If you're the pro-life, you know, the life continues after the birth occurs. And so there's lots more life coming up here. And so, yeah, so it's a consistency matter. Cynthia, you were saying about Justice Kennedy speculating. I wonder if it's because that people that get pregnant in his vicinity catch shit from him, right? Or maybe it's that he's around all those people, or people like him are around those people, putting that pressure on. If you notice that certain people are always feeling down about things, then maybe you're the cause of it. You know, maybe you're one of the people that are causing them to feel that way. But there was one thing, you reminded me of this. There was it was a chilling warning that Dr. Foster gave us at the end of the article there. And she said, what the Turnaway study doesn't answer about the current time is that many people will manage to circumvent their state laws, and they won't carry that pregnancy to term, and they'll travel to nearby or faraway states, or they'll order medication abortion pills online, and they'll manage to get an abortion. And this really hit me. And some people will try dangerous things and potentially harm themselves. And so we really don't know the full effects of this decision. And so, you know, that you talked about infant mortality rates, and you talked about, you know, mortality rates of the mother. Getting an abortion is traumatic. I mean, it physically affects you. And so if you want to be able to set it up the way you so that you can do it right. Okay. You mentioned about finances. you just bought diapers. My son just graduated from college. The expense doesn't stop at diapers, just to prepare you ahead of time here.
Damn it.
But if you restrict people from family planning as they see fit, then you put them in situations where they have to where just happenstance is directing their lives. If somebody wants to get an abortion because they're not financially prepared, well, maybe the next year they would have been prepared, and then they could have started their family then, or continued their family. Actually, I think it was 60% of the women in this were already mothers. These were not first-time mothers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But before we wrap up on this one, I wanted to just throw out a few more of the results that they found.
Yeah,
so in addition to what we've already talked about, they found that people that are denied abortions are more likely to experience serious complications from the end of pregnancy, including eclampsia and death. So higher death rate there. They're more likely to stay tethered to their partner even if they want to separate from an abusive partner. So they found that they were more likely to stay in an abusive relationship. And again, that goes to the "are you ready to be a parent" thing here. They're more likely to suffer anxiety and loss of self-esteem in the short term after being denied the abortion. They're less likely to have aspirational life plans for the coming year, which makes sense because you have a child there. But again, if they're not ready for it, then it kind of can upend major plans for your life. They're more likely to experience poor physical health for years after the pregnancy, including chronic pain and gestational hypertension. And finally, the study found that being denied abortion has serious implications for the children born of unwanted pregnancy, as well as for the existing children in the family. So there were these negative outcomes when the family chemistry was changed against the will of those members. And I think I just want to yield the rest of my time to Cynthia. I just want to listen to her talk about it some more.
No, I just have one more thing to say, and before we wrap up and then move on, I just wanted to say that anytime that you create a ban for anything, and I said this in my notes, you immediately create a black market for it. And we can look at history to show this happens. You look at the war on drugs, look and what happened, like especially when we're talking about these bans and the criminality element that's attached to it. Look at prohibition and what happened with that. And also, because these particular industries were not regulated, and people who happened to be users or what have you also died because they didn't have proper regulations to make sure that they were done and administered correctly. And that's all I got to say about that. Richard?
Wrap us up, Richard. What's the bow tie that takes us into happier, brighter days?
The bow tie is this. Look, I'm in no way qualified to say anything, so I'm going to leave the last word to some medical professionals, not lawmakers influenced by their misinterpretation of a Bronze Age book. So this is a direct quote taken from the NHS website, the National Health Service in Britain, to those considering an abortion. The decision to have an abortion is yours alone. Some women may be certain they want to have an abortion, while others may find it more difficult to make a decision. All women requesting an abortion can discuss their options with and receive support from a trained pregnancy counsellor if they wish. Impartial information and support are available from your GP or another doctor at your GP practice, a counselling service at the abortion clinic, organisations such as Brooke for under 25s, BPA's MSI Reproductive Choices UK, and NUPAS. You may also want to speak to your partner, friends, or family, but you do not have to. They do not have a say in your decision. If you do not want to tell anyone, your details will be kept confidential. If you're under 16, your parents do not usually need to be told. The doctor or nurse may encourage you to tell a parent, carer, or other adult you trust, but they will not make you. come on, America, catch up with the rest of the world.
I think that is an absolutely fantastic way to move on from that. So, with all that being said, I'd like to say to everybody out there that's hanging out with us, thank you so much. We absolutely love our veteran viewers here. And if you're new to us and you like what you're hearing, well, subscribe already. It's real easy. You kind of like scroll down a little bit and then you click a button, and then there's actually another button next to it. It's the like button. It kind of looks like a thumb, I think, kind of like, does that look familiar? It's right there. It's just below me. Click the like, subscribe, ring the bell so that you are always notified when new non-profit episodes happen. But just a little hint, Sunday at 3 p.m. Central. So go ahead and set the clocks. The next thing, though, to do is actually even easier. You just share the link. Just share this video out there to your friends on your Facebook or social media, to family members, to that person at the office that keeps coming up to you and just saying those really casual yet absolutely incorrect remarks about abortion. Just throwing some different suggestions out there, but anybody would be great. That the more people that hang out with us and the more people that are subscribed really helps out with the fundraisers that we are able to do. So, and did you know that the atheist community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Well, it's very easy to find. It is the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all of the amazing ACA shows in podcast form. You don't have to see our beautiful faces, but you might want to sometimes. But if you don't want to, just subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. You can listen to all the episodes of the Nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, and all of the other wonderful ACA shows. So don't miss a single episode. And actually, I think it's about time for a break, y'all. We'll just chill for just a second here. For everybody that wasn't on their game last week and you missed all the ACA shows, well, here's what you missed.
If I have a mindful, healthy relationship, that means we don't bring in our own shame or issues or react disproportionately. It's like, oh no, you still get to be two humans colliding together, which is a shit show, and hopefully it goes as well as possible.
I mean, if I had to pick one, I'd probably take that Roman wine god, Bacchus, I think his name is.
Oh, that's new to me, but yeah, that sounds pretty good.
He'd be a cool deity, man. Those Romans had some gods that knew how to party.
I wouldn't be comfortable with any religious institution doing it, you know? Let's take the opportunity to just talk more about, I don't know, math or reading. I mean, we could use
science.
Yeah, we could
science.
It seems like that's what you believe, Frank, or whoever your name is.
My name's not Frank. We'll call me. I'll be Frank. Let me be Frank. Okay, I'll be Frank. Let me be frank with you. Okay, Patrick.
Just listening to you guys has brought me up, and I needed that.
Good. Go give that man a good squeeze on the hand. Let him know that none of us here are praying for him. But all of us can't wait until he walks out of the hospital to tell his story.
And we are back for this next segment. Cynthia is going to tell us about some theory, some hypothesis. What is it, and why is it great? What's going on here?
Yes, Secular Rarity. I just want to let everyone know, not only on this panel, but who are watching, rather. Let me get my English correct. I'm sorry, Richard. That I have been waiting all of my 40 years on this earth just to talk about this. Just to talk about how you, Secular Rarity, you, Scott Dickie, and you, Richard Gilliver, and all who happen to share your lack of melanin are being replaced. Yes, you are being replaced, and it is a great replacement I don't know how great or if it's great or even if it's a replacement, but it is there because people are talking about it. I heard people talking about it in the water, around the water cooler, around the five and dime, around the dollar store, around the discounted Frodo's, secular rarity. They've been talking about it. And basically, this is all to bring, some levity to a very serious topic. And I just did that, just to kind of just give some people like a breather to really talk about something very real as far as in the minds of people who actually share this rhetoric. So in earlier in mid-May 2022, there was another mass shooting in the United States. We have plenty. I know it's hard to keep count. I think that, we're like since 1999 or no, since in the past 10 years, I think they were close to 2,000. Yeah, let that sink in. But anywho, in Buffalo specifically, there was an area that was targeted by a young person, 18 years of age, who was able to purchase an AR-15 legally, traverse 200 miles away from where he lives to open fire on African Americans, predominantly African Americans, in a predominantly African American neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, at a grocery store. This is on a Saturday when he decided to do this. Most people who were there were just getting their groceries for the week, most likely, and they never got a chance to go home to see their families again. And his whole motive for doing this was in a 180 well thought out, sort of, kind of, manifesto that espoused talking points from the Great Replacement Theory. So what exactly is the Great Replacement Theory? So we're going to be coming specifically from a few articles in this whole segment. We're going to lead off with the Atlantic article by Adam Serwer, that was published on May 18, 2022, that discussed the Buffalo shooter and the Great Replacement Theory. Also, Vox put out an article by Zach Beauchamp called "A Neo-Nazi Idea to Spark a Race War Inspired by the Buffalo Killings," and also another article by Rebecca Watson, which is, actually, this is an actual YouTube video, which is very well done. I really encourage people to actually watch it, by Rebecca Watson, also known as the Skep Chick, who talks about the very dangerous and very odd action of conservatives that are actually defending and trying to sanitize their version of the Great Replacement Theory. And we have like the Guardian talking about Fox News getting a little bit quiet on the Great Replacement Theory. And last but not least, a survey from Religions News that actually talks about Great Replacement Theory and how it even correlates with Christian nationalist views. So let's get into the whole thing about the Great Replacement Theory and why it's bullshit. So, because it's bullshit. I personally would love to say in this particular segment, the Great Replacement shit that the Great Replacement Theory says. Let me say that again. Shit that the Great Replacement Theory says, because you know that shit Internet Apologist says is like one of my favorite segments on this show. So anyway, in the lead article, giving a summation, in the wake of the shootings in El Paso, Texas, and recently in Buffalo, New York, exactly what is Great Replacement Theory? So, according to the article in Atlantic, the white genocide or Great Replacement conspiracy theory rests on the ideological principle that certain people should be excluded from the American dream, or that extending it to them would constitute a form of bondage for those to whom the promise was originally kept. So, moving on, there's actually two versions that I believe the the Vox article talked about of the replacement conspiracy theory. But both of them share the same basic premise. Now, what is that? So the first version is that the idea of a secret cabal, that's right, people, there's a secret cabal going along. You better pay attention. Matter of fact, I would even pay attention to your pizza boxes. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And this particular secret cabal is composed of Jews. That's right. Jewish people are composing the secret cabal and is fostering a demographic change in the United States, specifically through immigration, in order to replace its white population. You know, secular Rarity, Scott, Dickie, B, y'all in trouble now. Richard, you know, you across the pond, you know, you just need more faith to actually walk across the pond, but that's okay. But you know, but y'all in trouble specifically. And in order to replace this white population, the motive of mass murders in Pittsburgh and El Paso and now Buffalo is being exacted because of this particular theory. Now, the second one of this particular conspiracy theory is that liberals, them goddamn lefties, Antifa looking asses, are fostering demographic change in the United States through immigration. Oh yeah, I talked about that. And to replace the white population. And they are both conceived as an American fundamental white and Christian theory. And in so do posit not only a racial conception of citizenship, but a racial hierarchy. And one that must be maintained if America true nature is to endure. That these theories are now embraced by descendants of some of the very European immigrants who Grant considered racially inferior might have shocked, but just shows how arbitrarily and socially this whole particular, the categories that actually come with great replacement theory are. So you know, I'm going to go ahead and lean back and let's go ahead and open up to the floor.
Yeah, Cynthia, you were talking about the true nation, right? The true nation, and yes. You know, what we're talking about here is it's like white privilege amped up to the max, right? Yes. I mean, it's like the ultimate white privilege, and you know, hidden behind that is this idea of white preservation. Mm-hmm. Right, that you said the true nation. So what that implies is that America is really white, and you know, and so when you, I mean, because people die and are born all the time. Literally, people get replaced all the time. But we're talking about a specific type of replacement, right? We're talking about the secret cabals are taking white people out of rotate. I don't know. Did they say that people were offing these white people, or I don't know. How does the mechanic? I haven't been invited to my replacement theory meeting, you know, in this neighborhood yet, and so I don't know exactly what's going on.
You got to talk to the Jewish. You got to talk to the Jewish cabal, Scott.
But it, you know, if you think about this, when I see something like this, I try to think of it in terms of, well, what are they gaining from this? I mean, obviously they're catching flack from us liberals that are in on the whole thing, apparently. But you know, if you look at it from the perspective of your Tucker Carlsons, etc., it fits perfectly with their modus operandi, right? You know, we see evidence popping up all the time. There's Jonathan Haidt. He's written some books on this type of thing, and he says that his research found that the more conservative a person rates their own political outlook, they're more likely to consider things like authority, in-group measurement, purity. Okay, and that can also go back on what we were talking about with the abortion. You know, it's really not the pregnancy that they're concerned about. They want to punish that that lewd sexual behavior, but
right.
That's a whole, we'll leave that alone for now. But for here, so if we think about this in terms of racial purity. We think about it in terms of in-group measurement. We think about it in terms of doing what you're told, as compared to the more liberal a person rates themselves. They're more concerned with things like fairness and well-being. And now those aren't necessarily in and of themselves better than worrying. There's ways you can worry about purity. That's a good thing. There's ways that you can worry about in-group measurement or in-group membership and authority in a positive way. But clearly this is a very, very harsh negative way of looking at it. And it's all along, because look at these last few election cycles. There's always been a boogeyman, right? To rally the conservatives to the polls, right? The Muslims are going to come and get you, and the immigrants are coming to get you, and the gays are coming to get you. And now they're going to take their guns, and they're going to take your taxes, and now they're coming to kill your babies, and now they're going to replace you. And so, it's just a fear-based motivation. And it looks, if you're not of a conservative mindset, you're not affected by it as much as you would normally be. And so it, from looking at it from the outside, it looks kind of silly in one way, terrifying in another way, and worrisome in any way, right? They're coming to take your place. What could be more threatening to somebody than knowing that your legacy, your contribution to the world is going to be wiped out? It's kind of like in Last of the Mohicans. This was in the movie. I don't believe it was in the book. But, and of course, this is a man of color talking to a white man in the movie. And he's saying, when the gray hair is dead, this is Magua. I don't know if you've seen the movie Last of the Mohicans. He says, when the gray hair is dead, before he dies, I will put his children under the knife, so his seed will be wiped from the earth forever. And so that was like the ultimate existential threat. Not only am I going to make your life difficult, you're just out of here, and we're going to put other stuff in. And so it's just, I don't know if calling it thinly veiled white privilege would be accurate. It's not even veiled at all. It's just like right out there on their sleeve, white privilege. This is clearly, this is my country. You can't take me out of the country and have it be the same. It's the exact opposite of the Schoolhouse. When I was a kid, I don't know if you've watched Schoolhouse Rock. You guys are probably a little too young to have experienced the Schoolhouse Rock.
I watched Schoolhouse Rock.
But they had the Great American Melting Pot, and I loved that one because it showed all these different people coming from all. Now, there are problems with the Great American Melting Pot. It was created in the 60s or whenever it was, and so it's not perfect. But it was all about, coming together, and what we make is what we make together, not as what we make as individuals. And this seems to be like, are we going in reverse now? Is this a measure of how far we've come? Now we're backing up to, to pre-American melting pot days. And
yeah,
I don't know.
I think while so many of these articles that we have are very much focused on, white American Christian type of influences and focuses. Richard, you've got a little bit of kind of a passing glance with this, but in a bit of a different focus. What is that like?
We have this in the UK as well, but the most of the conversations I've had, and this is 30 years of conversations, by the way. This isn't just like 2 minutes ago. Is that there's so much fear against Muslims in this country that they're going to breed us out, that they're going to overtake us and breed us out and instill Sharia law and all this bullshit which is going off. And I have these conversations all the time. And that's what it is. It's fear. People are scared. And they're not scared because there's a genuine threat. They're scared because they don't understand. We all know that there's wrapping yourself tightly in a bubble with those who look and sound exactly like you is far better than education in order to alleviate such fears. There'll be somewhat people watching this or listening, if you found the amazing AEN podcast network, go and check it out, screaming, "We're not scared." But let's look at what the science says about it.
Please.
Cognitive behavioral therapist Marian Rodriguez said in an article published in Psychology Today, hate of certain ethnic groups, religions, races, or sexual orientations is based on irrational beliefs that lead to hatred of others as well as hate crimes. It is the belief that other groups are inherently flawed or inferior or are seen as a threat. Often these groups are dehumanized and delegitimized, making it easier to hate. A study led by the University of Oxford, published in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences journal, suggests that people can be less racist by integrating themselves in ethnically mixed areas. And this is confirmed by neurological data. An article published in the journal Psychological Science implies that people with stronger negative implicit race attitudes may actually perceive black and white faces to look more different. All areas of study seem to point in the same direction. The way to alleviate the fear white supremacists have is to integrate them into a wider ethnic and religious culture. And this is something, as in the ACA, we've seen in another context. The amount of calls we've had to our shows where people have become more tolerant and understood the atheist position because they've been exposed to it is, it's immense. It happens on a weekly basis. The message here, it seems, is simple. So let's bring it back round to the article. News networks shouldn't be echoing white nationalist sentiments. They should be educating people with science. I know that's a dirty word. We've already touched upon that at least a couple of times tonight. And many people find it boring. But as myself and very good friend and fellow ACA host Kenny Lenny say far too often, it all depends whether you care about truth or not. If the news networks aren't echoing the research, in fact, if they're going against it, then should you really be questioning whether they are legitimate sources of good information? That's an open question that each individual has to answer for themselves, I think.
Yeah.
Cynthia,
Most definitely.
do you have a...
I just wanted to add this real quick, just going back to this whole why this is bullshit. And what you said, Richard, is so appropriate. Gee, knowledge and actually being exposed to different ideas can actually change your mind and make you less shitty. Who'd have thunk? Yeah. But even just going back to why this is a mess. So I wanted to point out that, first off, when we're talking about immigrants specifically in the United States, most of them are coming from Northern Africa and also from Latin American countries or the Middle East. And they're all categorized as racially white. Okay? Like all of them. And then white folks actually still hold the majority of bodies and wealth in the United States. 90% of the wealth of the United States is actually held in white hands, not the other way around. And also they hold most of the government, and they also hold mostly seats in business. Okay. So and then
there's your motivation right there.
Right.
With a bow on it.
With the bow, right. But even with the Buffalo shooters who actually researched the neighborhood that he went to, it kind of it's interesting, especially since he talked about immigrants, he talked about Jews, he talked about the man in the moon, but he went specifically to a black neighborhood where blacks actually hold less than 13% of the overall population and less than 2% of the wealth in the United States. So I just want to ask him, because he's still alive and he's being arraigned. My dude, who's replacing who?
It is quite literally, and in these articles, when you read through them, when you go check out what Vox had, when you go see the video that Skepchick created, you can see the thread that this shitty argument has had throughout history. We can see how it goes all the way back to the 1930s, because this is the second oldest shittiest play out of the oldest, shittiest book, the first of which being "My God's better than your God. Look, I'll kill you to prove it." So it's frustrating when garbage like this is expressed by mainstream news sites, whether that be from people like Tucker, whoever, whatever person, whatever person out there would want to express such horrible things. I'm definitely not a fan of them, and I have to say that I think they should take ownership of it. All of that being said, folks, we know this was tough, and we're glad that you have stayed with us this whole time. Again, please take a quick minute and go look at these articles. There's a lot of really, really good information down there. That being said, did you know that you can become a member of this wonderful channel for just as little as 99 cents a month? If you enjoyed this episode, you've enjoyed ones in the past, just click the join button below the video, and this will give you access to all those special chat emojis. And check it out, we have a brand new store. All you got to do is visit tiny.cc/merchaca to get your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. You can check out the new items like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags. And I've heard rumor that each month, every ACA show features a special limited edition item. So go check out the store for the NP merch and then merch from all of the other wonderful shows. And while you're at it, just join our fan social media outlets. You can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the atheist community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. If you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And if you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the atheist community of Austin as the beneficiary. Be sure to use that link to help out the ACA because every little bit counts, and we do really appreciate it. Also, we value your feedback. There's a lot of really super easy ways to reach out to us. One, just tell us what you like or what you don't like by just going to the comments below and saying your piece real quick. Or you could email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. That is atheist-community.org. We make it easy for you folks. Let's go round the horn. We'll Scott, give us like 30 seconds of a wrap up. What do you think about all this? Is there progress? Did we miss something? What do you got?
It's, we got to treat each other better than this. We got to do better than this. We have to respect other people. We have to respect. It's not all about the rich white guy. Okay. We have to, other people are human beings too. People, pregnant individuals are human beings. People from other places other than where I happen to be from are just as much people. And I think we just need to, it takes practice and it takes effort, and I'll leave it at that.
Cynthia, 30 seconds. What you got?
My body, my choice. And that does not believe, and that does not apply to COVID vaccines. Okay. Get your goddamn vaccine. Secondly, white people who actually hold these particular ideas, you are not being replaced. Stop that shit. And everybody, just be more kind to each other. Get some knowledge. Read a book that's not over 2,000 years old and that does not change like science. And that's all I have to say. Take care of yourself and each other.
Richard, what you got?
Yeah, it really is. Science is more beneficial than emotion. And fucking go and integrate with other people. Don't keep yourself in a little bubble.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if there is going to be a great replacement, how about the first people we look at are those rich old white men making laws about people and things they don't know shit about. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.